everyone, welcome back to Cardvoyant. I'm Kris and I'm your Cardvoyant, and today we're going to be talking once again about symbolism in tarot. I'm going to start out this sort of series on animals. So the tarot cards contain images of a lot of different animals, and there's a lot of symbolism associated with these animals. There are horses, rabbits, lions, birds of different kinds. There's a salamander, there's the bull, there's a lot of different animals. But I want to start this series talking about dogs, cats, and horses. And when I say cats, there's really only one house cat in tarot. But, we do have lions and so forth. We'll talk about those separately as lions and not cats. I'm doing just dogs, horses, and cats in this video because I want to keep it short. And I didn't want to have like an hour-long video where you sort of have to search for the animals. So we'll try and keep this kind of short and sweet. So let's talk, first of all, about cats, the cat. As I said, there's really only one cat in tarot, one house cat, and that is in the Queen of Wands. Now, this is a black cat as well, so there's a lot of symbolism that we naturally associate with a black cat. And in a lot of cultures, the black cat is bad luck, and you don't want to cross your path, and all those kinds of things. But here, this sort of lends back to a more traditional idea of cats with kind of a twist, and a very positive twist. So black cats are associated with witches as a familiar. They were, in legend, they were sort of sent by the devil to protect witches. So this Queen of Wands, and this is, as I said, the only card in which a cat, like domesticated house cat, appears. This Queen of Wands very much understands Wands energy, which is very fiery. I mean, these are the fire signs, the fire cards, the Wands card. So it's like this passionate energy, this exuberance for life. And this cat, in a way, just like in this old idea, acts as her protector. Life, we can get easily sort of weighed down by the difficulties in life. And life is full of difficulties. And so in her exuberance for life, this cat symbolizes that protection from life. So she's very much in it. She understands it. And yet she has this sort of protective barrier that keeps her from going like over the top, or keeps her from this like being assaulted by life. So it's very much this idea of being very passionate about life, but this cat acts as protector from life, sort of that calming influence, that understanding influence. And in that way, the cat also is sort of this idea of a familiar, this communication with life that allows her to understand life in this way and still live in it and experience it to the fullest without being so affected or weighed down by life. There's like a conversation between her and life that this cat also symbolizes. When you get the Queen of Wands, it is this idea of somebody who does have this kind of exuberance and control, this understanding of this passionate, fiery, forward-moving Wands energy. And as I said, it's the only cat, so it does really stand out here, and it does go along with this lovely feminine energy that we think of as feminine energy, this understanding, this compassion, this love. This is the Rider-Waite deck, so keep in mind, if you use another deck that you feel really comfortable with, you can sort of translate these meanings to those decks, even though they might not had all the exact same symbolism. So in some of your cards, your Queen of Wands may not have a cat, although it most likely does. But let's move on to dogs. Dogs are so lovely in tarot, and I did dogs and horses together because dogs and horses are closely like related in the symbolism that they have. The cards that include dogs are the Ten of Pentacles, the Moon card, and the Fool card. In both the Fool card and the Ten of Pentacles, the dogs are white. Now, we'll talk about white in horses as well, but and we've talked about white in color. There is this kind of purity, this kind of a sense of innocence when you have this white color, and maybe most importantly, unlike the Fool card, is this pure intention. There's also a very close connection when you talk about white with divinity, right? This sort of divine purity, right? So, what do dogs represent? Well, dogs talk about trust, faith, companionship. They're very closely related to this idea of our worldly selves, but when they are talking about when we have this white color, it's very much talking about this sort of pure intention, this purity of our hearts, this desire to do with loyalty, with purity, and sort of with this divine intention. So look at the Fool card. I mean, this dog is this nipping at the heels here of this fool who's about to take this wonderful leap into the unknown, and he symbolizes that companionship, that trust, right? That when we have animals, dogs in particular, they have this bond with humans that is built on trust and love. And this is exactly what the Fool's doing. He's stepping into the world, into something new with trust and with love. Now, when I talk about just our very pure human natures, that's what we're also talking about with dogs. We have this trust is just such a good word, and companionship, loyalty, love, and we find that in the Moon card. Now, in the Moon card, we have both the dog and the wolf, and I didn't mention wolves specifically, but they are sort of that same dog presence, although they represent much more the sort of obviously wild side of this human nature that we're talking about in the Moon card, because these two animals, the dog and the wolf, they represent these different sides of humanity. And what better animal to represent humans than the dog, because there is loyalty, love, trust. There is this spark of, when you have this trust, when you trust in your soul self, you have this sort of connection to the divine. And that's very much what we're talking about in this idea of dogs in tarot. Now, in the Moon card, these two types of dogs, they represent sort of our inner and our outer selves, our restrained selves, our wild selves, these two parts of being human, right? Even our soul selves and our physical selves. When you talk about the dog, not the wolf, you're talking about this very sort of inner selves, our truer selves, our divine selves, our loyal, loving selves. And then the wolf is sort of our testing self, right? We're trying out the world. We're a little bit wild, right? We're more controlled by our desires, our physical needs and desires, and sometimes our sexual energy, or our it can be movement toward the goals that we have, but it can tend more towards something like greed or power. But we also have this other side, this dog side, that calms us, that guides us, that leads us closer to our truer selves, as as dogs do, because they are this simple, loving companion, right, that helps us through life. And we see this sort of extension of the dog idea of loyalty, faith, purity in the Ten of Pentacles. We talk about dogs as being, if you've ever had a dog, and I'm sure many of you have them right now, you know how they sense things. And that's this idea of the Ten of Pentacles. I mean, the dogs in all of the tarot cards, they sort of sense, right, what's right inward, or they have a sense of what we need, right, or who we truly are, or who others truly are. And that's what we see in this Ten of Pentacles, because you see the dogs here being petted by the elderly man who is off sort of at the side here, the seventh couple, and the child's glancing in that direction, but nobody's really paying attention to the divinity of this man, right? And this is the idea of dogs recognizing the good in life and in us and in others, right? This is the idea of the stranger coming to the door and us being asked to help him, and maybe not recognizing the divinity in that person. This is like, there's like the biblical story, right? But it's also in other stories, throughout history, in the idea of like Odysseus coming home, and only after all this years, the Trojan War, and coming home, and his dog being the only one to recognize him, because the dog knows. Conversely, the dog recognizes the person that's out of place, the evil or ill-intentioned person, right? And dogs, you may have experienced this with your own dog, where they just don't like a certain person, and maybe later you find out why. But this is, again, the loyalty to humans, the understanding of humanity, and this idea of a relationship that goes beyond a person-to-person relationship and is on a deeper soul understanding relationship. What better animal to represent that than the dog? So let's talk about horses. And there are quite a few horses, because every knight card includes a horse. There's the knight is on horseback. Then we have the death card, where there's also the rider on horseback. The sun card is another major arcana card that includes a horse. And the six of wands also includes a horse. So horses, as I said, have traits that are similar to dogs. That is, they are loyal companions. Dogs talk often about, when we see them, there's this sort of trust that indicates movement, right? Because when you have that trust, you're able to move forward. Well, horses have that same sort of idea, this literal taking us forward. Now, both horses and dogs are also what are called psychopomps. And psychopomps are figures, some like horses and dogs, some mythical, that carry people to the other world, to the underworld, or to the non-physical world, right? So they talk about not only movement, but movement toward a new beginning. They are carriers. They are bringing their riders, or those that follow them, to a new beginning, to, in this case, the non-physical world. But that is a new beginning, right? It's very central to the idea of the life-death cycle. Clearly, in the death card, it is talking about this sort of movement to another world that can be literal, but it's tarot cards, so this is mostly an illusion, a symbol of this idea of rebirth. That's why this horse in the death card is white, because it talks about purity, it talks about pure intention, it talks about pure movement, it talks about goodness and light. And that's what happens in this sort of movement to a higher place, to a new beginning, to a resurrection of sorts. And that's what the death card is talking about. In this card, as in several of the knight cards, the horse is moving toward the right. Many of you know I was like a journalist, not like, many of you know, I was a journalist for many years, and we talk a lot about how the way that pictures are positioned on actual physical newspapers, that something either takes you onto a page because of the way it's moving or off of the page. So like into the newspaper or off of the newspaper, like turning the page. You can see that this death card, and we'll talk about the other cards that have this, the night cards. The horse is moving toward the right. So in a way, off the page, this is like, to me, this is moving toward physical life. Like these are physical things that are happening, things in our lifetime that leads us that way. Other cards are horses are moving to the left, which to me is interior. So they're calling on us to sort of look at things inside of ourselves, like go into ourselves, our higher selves, and to learn something from that that will also help us move forward in our lives. This card, with this sort of glowing red eyes that talks about this passionate fiery energy. I'm talking about the death card. This white horse talks about movement, and it talks about carrying its rider in the way that a dog is advancing people's lives, because it's talking about loyalty, purity, companionship, understanding this connection with humanity and with our inner selves is what what it's talking about here. And it moves us forward. Horses are about movement. They move us forward. All of the night cards are about movement, and they're talking about, in night cards, this movement that is quite literal, right? It's something that's beginning to happen. The page cards are about movement and moving forward, but so much of that is in our minds. It's like, planning something, getting ready to move. But this night cards, all the night cards talk about this beginning of movement where it's actually beginning to happen. So sometimes it's about making choices or, figuring out the ways in which you move. And you can see there are two horses, the Knight of Cups and the Knight of Swords, that are white. The Knight of Cups is moving to the right, right? And the Knight of Swords is moving inward to the left. Sword cards are all about our minds, so it makes sense that in the sword card, even though this horse is like rearing up, it's ready to go, it's calling on us to think about this, right? To kind of slow down, like you are on the track and you are going. This horse is white horse that talks about pure intention, this desire, this clean and ready and pure movement that this Knight of Swords is ready to move into, and saying, you need to also think about this, not just go. That's why it's to the left here. And in the Knight of Cups, it's very different. You can see the positioning or the posture of the horse is very similar to the death card. There's this idea of change and sort of reevaluation or evaluation that is going to bring us forward, but it requires us to have sort of a solemnity, like we need to be thinking about this. In the Knight of Cups, he has this sort of pose that is reflective, but almost can veer off into like fantasy or daydreaming, as Cups cards often do. But this horse sort of guarantees or holds the promise of this forward movement, even as there's this idea of sort of a pause, an evaluation, a taking stock of what's around you or what's going on in the situation. And the horse, as the rider sits on the horse, sort of brings you a little bit above the fray, right? You can be more observant when you're on horseback and sort of looking down on what's going on. But these beautiful white horses, no matter whether they're charging or this sort of repose posture, they talk about this purity, this goodness, this positivity that is moving us forward, whether it's in this very fast way that requires us to really do some thinking, or this way that allows us to observe. And we see that in the Six of Wands also, another card with this sort of passionate wands, fiery, I care about this, this is what I love, this is what I want to do, this is my purpose energy. And here the rider too is sort of positioned, well, not sort of, he is positioned above the people around him. Even as they sort of celebrate him, he's able to take stock. And again, he's on this white horse that symbolizes, again, this sort of goodness, this purity, this drive that has brought him in the Six of Wands to this place of being celebrated, even as he moves forward into a new phase of his life. Again, these horses, these forward moments, these good things that are happening. And the Sun card, I mean, come on, Sun card, how better to symbolize this movement and this joyous celebration of life, even as we move forward within it, than the Sun card. It's like a beautifully embracing the things that you don't quite know sometimes, but because we're celebrating in a way that is almost childlike in the exuberance that we have for it. That's why there's a child on the horse in the Sun card. And again, another white horse, right? This beautiful white horse that is moving forward in all the joyous celebration that is the light of the sun. The white horse here in the Sun card is very much in like a posture of command. The child or the person being sort of in control of the situation, and therefore the horse willing to do your bidding to bring you forward in the way that you want. So the Sun card is very much this exuberant celebration of life that says, I am doing this. I am working through life. I am creating this. And yes, this card recognizes that and recognizes that you are moving very forward in a positive way. So the last two cards that have horse imagery on them are the Knight of Pentacles and the Knight of Wands. And these are different colored horses, right? The Knight of Wands is this beautiful sort of golden color that leans towards red, which is always about passion, but it's like muted because there's a more control there. But there's still this beautiful exuberance, very much talks about moving towards your goals, doing things that are moving towards your goals, and recognizing this need. Again, it's facing left, so it's like going toward the inside. Recognizing this needs to really examine what we are doing and why we are doing it, because Wands cards are about the why. Why do I want this? I mean, why am I moving forward? They are these fire, passionate energy cards. So we do have to evaluate that from time to time. Am I moving toward the things that I truly want? Have I gotten sidetracked? Or how do I get back on the path to get toward these things? But this beautiful rearing horse on the Wands card recognizes that you are moving forward. You are ready to go, right? And this horse will carry you there. Being loyal, as horses are, being in control, as you need to be when you're riding a horse, will bring you toward the things that you truly want if you recognize where it is that you truly want to go, where you want to end up on this ride. I mean, this horse, this beautiful sort of golden reddish horse, all this fiery energy is rearing to go and asks only that you direct it appropriately. Now, the Knight of Pentacles is really different, right? First of all, it's a black horse. Again, nothing evil about this at all. I mean, Pentacles are earth cards, and so it's appropriate to have this very earthy color that black represents, almost like a tree trunk that is planting you or connecting you to this earth energy. And here we have this horse that is like a plow horse, and he's bearing his rider, and he's ready to go as well. But he's very much a workhorse. I mean, he's he's talking about these very physical needs that you have in life and how sometimes there are delays. I mean, this isn't a horse that is like rearing up and ready to go, but he is going to carry you forward. But he does talk about work, and he does talk about sort of plodding along, in this movement, and asking you to look outside at sort of the symbols. Where are we going? But these are earth cards, right? So how do we get there physically? What do we do in the world to move us forward? This horse talks about being there for you, carrying you forward. It talks about moving forward, but it also talks about the reality of Earth life and how that sometimes is, slow moving, although definitely progress is being made. And you are progressing through life and in life. And it can be, very small things that this horse is sort of plodding along to bring you to, or it can be this big, your life goal kind of thing. Again, horses are very positive. They talk about movement. They carry you along. But these different shades of color, these different postures that they have can talk about very different things. So even when we're talking about animals, we'll see there's a lot of the other animals that we're going to talk about in tarot cards, even though they are the same animal, the color can add nuance to their meanings. But in general, they're always talking about forward movement. They're talking about bearing the rider, you or your client, or whatever you're talking about the situation, to a new place, right? A place that you want to go. Sometimes they call on you, like with the sword, Knight of Swords card, to sort of evaluate if you are going in the right direction, or do you have the information that you need to go in this direction? But they're always talking about this kind of movement. And sometimes, like the Death card, they're talking about movement that brings you to a whole new place, like a 180, right? A whole new rebirth and new beginning. And that's why you need these strong, pure intentioned horses to take you to that place. So there you have it. That's a little bit about dogs, cats, and horses. I'll have other videos talking about animals if it's something that you're interested in, or if there's a particular thing that you want to know. Please let me know in the comments. I have a lot of people that comment and ask questions, and I've hesitated to kind of just like type them out in the comments, and I really would like to address them in a video where I just answer questions. So hopefully I'll do that soon as well. I kind of want to let them accumulate so I can do a longer video, not too long, but a little bit longer video on answering the questions. So I'll be back soon with more animals. We have a lot, like I said, to talk about. We've got, birds, and we've got fish, and we've got salamanders, and all kinds of things. And I also will talk about sort of fantastical animals, because we do have things like an Anubis, and we have sphinxes, and winged lions and lions. So we'll talk about all of that. I'll also have some more videos coming up with portions of reading, and I will try to also finish up, or move on with more about repeating numbers, if that's something you're interested in as well. I do have, again, gift certificates on sale right now for that can be given as gifts or for yourself, that never expire, that are about 25% off my, and not about, exactly 25% off my regular reading fee. Appointments for those will begin after January 15th. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being interested in tarot and how it can help your lives. And until next time, I will just say, please take care of yourself. Please take care of others, and bye for now.